Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com, and right now I am joined by Brian Perillat. He is the senior analyst with CanFax. How are you doing today, Brian?
Oh, very good, Sean. Very good.
Hey, well, it's good to talk to you. We haven't talked for a while. As being the chief numbers guy over there at CanFax, you're the right guy to talk to after CanFax puts out its monthly report, which includes a number of different things. What were some of the highlights in the CanFax report this month, Brian?
Well, actually, there's a couple of things we put out. Obviously, the cattle on feed report came out this week. It's showing, we're continuing to have more cattle in Canada, as we've kind of seen over the last few months and the end of 15 when we haven't been exporting nearly as many cattle. So have more cattle on feed for the last few months. And, the other big thing here, I think, this month or last couple months as well, is a lot more heifers are going on to feed again. So, we always kind of gauge that as appetite for expansion, and unfortunately, it still looks like there's quite a few heifers going into feedlots.
Yeah, so are you a little bit surprised about the lack of export numbers with the difference in the dollar? Like, it just makes it sort of intuitively, you just think as the dollar drops, we would see more people taking advantage of that difference in exchange. Why is that? Why are those numbers the way they are?
Real interesting comments, and it's a bit of a, intuitively that's what people always think, but actually if you look back historically, a weak dollar does not really translate into more feeder cattle exports. You go back to 2000, 2001 when our dollar was 65 cents, feeder exports were actually very low back then. So it's kind of a misnomer in the industry that, the weak dollar is going to suck all our cattle south, and actually all it does, it sort of multiplies our price. It affects our price, the weak dollar, but it doesn't really affect the flow of cattle. And part of that is, our feeders might look cheap, but on the other hand, our fed cattle prices go up a lot relative to the United States. So, the feedlots here can still be competitive and keep cattle in Canada, the feeder cattle here in Canada. The other thing, too, that really happened is the U.S. industry, their feedlot sector has been on a lot of hurt. If you think about it, the U.S. market peaked in the fall of 2014, and their feedlots have literally been losing money for the most part since then, and are maybe starting to get back into the black. So last fall, their feedlots were hurting, where ours were still coming off some good profits of 2015, and that helps keep cattle in Canada as well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about those heifer numbers. So clearly, our cow herd is not on the rebound. We are not rebuilding it. Are you surprised when you compare the U.S. has shown indications they are. Canada, we're a bit slower. We're still not. We're not that confident yet. Are you surprised by our lack of willingness to retain more heifers?
Yeah, that portion of the numbers and the data and the industry reaction, I guess, to the markets the last couple of years is a bit surprising that, how limited it is. Just hasn't been an appetite for expansion. You can try and find reasons or an excuse or something like, last year we kind of had the drought at, right when guys were making some of those breeding decisions, and that pulled some heifers out of stock and went on to feed. It's just, like I say, that cautiousness, it is rather surprising, and like I say, it's quite kind of disappointing now that we're behind the eight ball on the expansion side. And to be honest, a few years ago, 2012, back even that far, the U.S. was in a drought, prices were good. I thought, we would be ahead of the U.S. in expansion, and we just never bit the bullet and expanded. And, I'm not sure we're going to see a whole lot of bounce like the U.S. has.
Yeah, so I guess, one of the questions is, we try to find reasons, but I guess what will it take to get this thing sort of kick-started?
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part here. And my worry from an expansion point of view is now that we're over the hump, the peak prices are behind us, and we're down to we're looking at a falling market basically. I'm not sure what it's going to take. To be totally honest, Sean, I wish I knew. Guys that have been profitable. I still think the cow-calf sector will be profitable this year. Not nearly as profitable as it was, but I think, most well-managed farms will be profitable, and we'll see a little bit of expansion. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see, at least some leveling off. We've kind of leveled off the herd and a bit of expansion, but boy, I don't know. At this point, when we look forward, we've been through some awesome years for a cow-calf producer. There's limited expansion. Now we're we're looking at the downside of the cycle, I don't have an answer for you there.
Anything else that was in the report, Brian, you want to talk about?
Well, the other part of the report that came out this Friday, too, was we put out the CanFax Trends Report, which basically is a profit-loss indicator, kind of our little model we run to, check profitability of feedlots. And, again, that's not a pretty report these days. Feedlot sector looking at some huge losses on some of these calves, that they paid big bucks for in 15 coming out of feedlots, and, hearing reports of that $500 plus kind of losses, and that's kind of what our trends report confirmed as well. So feedlot sector, they're the ones taking it on the chin, and again, that's why I think on some of these calf prices and things like that, we could see some pressure just from the fact that the feedlot's got to get their margins back in order, and that's going to hinder a little bit on the price potential for calves going forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners would describe it feedlot losses as more than just taking on the chin. It feels like more like a kick below the belt at this point.
Yeah, it's been massive. Yeah, no, without a doubt. Then you look at these price changes, and the dollars per head figures. A lot of them are they're worse than the BSE years for some of these feedlots. If you just look at dollars per head, it is huge, absolutely huge. And again, when we talk about those expansion signals, it's some of these trickle down effects are gonna limit things. And the other side is the whole land use side. The U.S. had drought, and once they got rain, they had grass, and cows went out there. In Canada, we lost a lot of some of our base forage production acres to grain land, and these grain prices have been picked up a notch here this spring, and that's not going to encourage much land transfer, and further leaves the cow herd in the rearview mirror for some of the outside guys that might have wanted to expand or get into the industry.
Yeah, no, you had just mentioned that we're definitely going to expect a lower feeder market in the fall based on some very extensive feed yard profit and losses, very extensive losses at the feed yard level. How do you have any early predictions on how much lower the feeder market could be this fall?
Oh, we got I guess definitely. Biggest thing I always talk about is the dollar. The futures, gosh, you can, if you want to stick your neck out, we're kind of more in a sideways trend with a downward sort of flavor to it. I think personally some of these futures have priced in a lot of negativity. You look at some of those old ratios of, cattle prices to hog prices and beef to pork. We're finally getting into some old relationships which I'm thinking might help support the beef market at this point. They were always sort of this overhead resistance or something that would bring the markets down, and we've been through. I think we've been through the biggest part of the fall on prices and futures. The dollars, man, that's anybody's guess. I think right now it's really hard to decipher where that's going with the U.S. and all their things going on down there. I don't think $2, $2 calves. You can make arguments that calves could be, if you want to get really negative or optimistic on the dollar, we could be in the 70s, 80s for calves up to, we could be 2.25. That's a big range, but definitely well below a year ago, and those high 190s, $2 range might be reasonable. But if we project off today's market, we're closer to we're more into the 80s. To be totally honest, the market doesn't change much.
Well, let's hope that we can find some equilibrium where ranchers can still make a profit, and maybe we can not have feed yards lose $500 a head, and we can, they can turn a profit too. It's always hard to find those where those two both do it at the same time, but that would be ideal. Yeah,
we had that. 2014 was one of was a good year that way, where everybody was happy making money, but the cow-calf got, basically. Careful what they say, but they got well paid last fall, and now with their feedlots off, and that's another thing that predicting these prices, just how disciplined are these feedlots going to be on their buy? Are they going to want to bid in some decent profits? And that could take 5-10 cents off the calf market if they're able to do that.
Yeah. Hey Brian, thanks a lot for joining us today, and let's make sure it doesn't take too long to get back together.
Yeah, no, sooner than later. Be good, Sean.